Hello everyone, my name is Zach. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to be doing a 2-for-1 book tags because I have been tagged by several people for several different tags and I am mad behind, and I figured it would just make sense to do 2-in-1 since I figured I would bake during a baking tag and it will probably take me a little while to do it, so why not just do 2 tags in 1. And since I was tagged by 2 lovely ladies from Florida, Mookie Reads and Reads with Rachel, I figured why not do those 2 tags today. So the first tag I'm going to handle is the end of the year book tag, which I was tagged to do by Megan, Mookie Reads. I will make sure to link all the channels mentioned down in the description. I'm sure there'll be a lot between the creators and who tagged me and who I'm tagging, but they'll be there. Anyway, this tag was created by Ariel Bassett, so I'm going to start peeling some sweet potatoes. I'm making sweet potato pie today. One for me and one for my dad to take to the station on Thanksgiving. He is a fireman and he's working on Thanksgiving, so I decided to make a second pie for him and the boys. And I don't think he has any women at his station, but if there's a woman, then the ladies at the station too. Don't want to forget them. Alright, so the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? To my recollection, I've only DNF'd 1 book this year that I intend to return to. Most of the time my DNFs are hard DNFs, books I don't plan on coming back to, because most of the time if I start a book, even if I'm not super feeling it, if I know I'm going to want to finish it, I'm going to force myself to finish it then and there so I don't have to start over. But the one book I did soft DNF is The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. This is a theological discussion book in which he talks about how does God exist with all the pain in the world, and how do you kind of reconcile the suffering of the world with the positive talk about kind of the afterlife and how God created the world and all those things. And I tried to read it right after spring semester finals, and I was just too brain dead to handle it. It's a short book, but it's very dense in content, it seemed like. I only got through like 1 chapter. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year because winter finals are fast approaching. Well, fall finals, but they're in the winter. But I do plan on going back to finish it. But as I said, I don't know if it'll be this year because I have a feeling after finals I'm just going to want something light and easy to read for the remainder of the year. So there's that. Question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? This probably would be a better question if I had done it back around when it was the tag was created back in September. I don't think I read any fall-centric books. And I don't really have any that are specifically that focused, so I don't think so. Alright, question number 3, is there a new release you're still waiting for? No, I only really had, I didn't wash my potatoes. So, no, I don't really have any new releases that I'm looking forward to. I really only had 2 new releases this year that I was really looking forward to, and they've both come out already. The first one was Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff, which is the last book in the Nevernight series. And then the other one I will mention momentarily in our next question, segue, which is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? So the other new release that I wanted to read was Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw, which I was very excited for, but came out while I was in a reading slump, which I'm just now starting to pull myself out of. So I haven't gotten to it yet, and then there's a readathon called Fantasy-a-thon hosted by Pages and Pens, The Book Pusher, and Ali Corvier, and Winterwood is the group read. So I figured I would just wait a couple more weeks and just read it with the group. Another one I'm looking forward to reading that I need to finish before the end of the year is Christine by Stephen King. I actually approached Paperback Dreams about the idea of doing a Stephen King buddy read because she's getting into Stephen King and I've been kind of in the mood to read another Stephen King as of late, and she graciously agreed. Don't know why she'd agreed to do a buddy read with a train wreck of a human being like myself, but I've learned in life when good things happen to you, you don't question it, you just accept it. So, Kat, if you're watching, thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to it. And there's one more book I wanted to mention. I totally just blanked. Oh, and the third one you need to finish is Wool by Hugh Howey, I think is how you say it, which is the I think it's the November/December pick for Paper Cut Book Club. That I need to read. I actually started it today, so I don't know if it super counts for this question, but it's the only one that I want to say, because the only other books I plan on reading before the end of the year are all Fantasy-a-thon picks, and I'm doing a separate TBR video for that, so stay tuned for that. Some exciting potato peeling action, isn't it? Question number 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? To be honest, no, not really. I'm not really anticipating any of the books that I plan on reading to become, my trash can's over here, any of my favorite books of all time. However, I do think Christine could become my favorite Stephen King horror novel, just because while I do really enjoy The Shining and Salem's Lot and some of his other horror novels, a lot of my favorite Kings tend to be his non-horror stuff like The Green Mile and Dolores Claiborne. So I still feel like there's a better horror book of Stephen King's that I have yet to read, and that just might be Christine. I really liked From a Buick 8, and a lot of people refer to that as just a worse version of Christine because they both kind of involve cars and it's kind of a horror story set up around cars. So if it's even better than From a Buick 6, which I feel is a bit underrated, then it could surprise me and be one of my new favorites of his. So, and the last question for this tag is: have you started making reading plans for 2020? Sort of. I don't have like super concrete plans. I mean, like I have a TBR list of books I want to get to, but I mean, really, I plan on continuing with Paper Cut Book Club. The hosts all seem to watch my vlogs, so I'm honored, and obviously I'm going to keep making them if people seem to like them, especially the hosts of Paper Cut Book Club, since they're 3 of my favorite booktubers. I also plan on continuing with the Book Push Book Club, hosted by Maddie the Book Pusher, because I love her channel, and we have become friends over the past few months, so I'm enjoying doing that with her. It's the 2nd month, and if it hasn't happened by the time I'm uploading this video, I'm actually going to be a co-host of the show for November, which is on Gods of Jade and Shadow, which I just started and am very much enjoying, so hopefully it's continues to be good. And besides that, I want to read a few more Mira Grant books, because I feel like she could become my all-time favorite author. And I want to get through some classics. I want to get through Crime and Punishment. I want to get through Count of Monte Cristo. Some other classics that I've bought but haven't gotten to yet. The Divine Comedy. I was going to say the Dante trilogy, but it's called the Divine Comedy. I need to read the Grisha trilogy for the show. And I think that's it for now. Probably more King, as long as his books continue to not be the worst ones, the ones I pick. So that is it for the end of the year book tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because I'm not sure how long it's going to be before I get this video up, and I'm sure it'll be close to the end of the year. So I'm going to actually double up on tags for the next book tag we're going to do. So yeah, I'm actually going to turn the camera off because I almost have enough potatoes, and then I'm going to be chopping them up, and I'm sure you're not going to be able to understand what I'm saying while I'm chopping sweet potatoes. So when I get to a better point, I will check back in with you. Alright, so we're back, and now we're going to be doing the Bakes and Books book tag. I believe that's what it's called. I forgot to write it down. I'm the best. But this tag was created by India from Life is a Page Turner, and that was tagged by Rachel from Reads with Rachel. I want to give a quick shout out to Rachel. She mentioned in her video she learned to cook for someone who had celiac and did like their birthday cakes. And as someone with celiac, I want to say that's greatly appreciated, even though she wasn't baking for me. If you enjoy baking and you're good at baking, I would say, and you know one of your friends has like a food allergy or an intolerance, learn to bake allergen-free for them, because as someone who has food allergies, I will tell you, few things in life feel as personal and like as amazing as a gift as just someone taking the time to make food that you can actually eat. When someone says, you know, hey Zach, I baked gluten-free cookies so you could have one. It is so touching, because so often people come up with, you know, hey, I made cookies for the group, I made brownies for the group, and you're like, are those regular? They're like, yep. And it hurts so bad because they look so good you can't eat them. So when someone actually like takes the time and effort to make them for you, it's just, it hits you right in the feels, I'll tell you that. But without further ado, we're gonna finish making this. I'm using an old recipe my mom has where all I get is the ingredients, the portions of the ingredients, and what to bake this at. So there's no like sequence, and there's no like bake for this long, so we're gonna see how this goes. But without further ado, let's start putting some stuff in here and let's start answering some questions. I'm gonna apologize, I'm probably traumatizing some vegans in my audience, but yes, I am using 6 eggs, and they are regular eggs. Fun fact, one of the sickest times I've ever had with celiac disease is when I accidentally ate leftover vegan hot dogs from my sister's birthday party, thinking they were regular hot dogs, and spent the rest of the night throwing up. So I have a little bit of beef with vegan food, but I highly respect vegans and your commitment to the environment and being environmentally friendly, but I've already been forced to limit my carbs and my sugar intake because of diabetes and cut gluten because gluten intolerance, so I ain't going vegan. Sorry, fam. But the first question we have here is cupcakes. Name a collection of short stories, poems, or an anthology where you couldn't just have one. Poetry and me are a struggle, and short stories and me are a struggle. However, one poetry collection that I have talked about before that I did really enjoy is called A Crow with No Mouth, which is by, I believe it's pronounced Kikuyu. It's a Buddhist monk, and it's a collection of 2-line Zen poems, and I really enjoyed them. They're kind of a, I don't know how to explain this. I'm not an expert on Buddhism. I'm not Buddhist myself. Anyway, it has a lot of things you wouldn't normally associate with Buddhism. Like, a lot of people associate Buddhism with like abstaining from worldly pleasures and being celibate. But this guy, his idea of Buddhism was to transcend kind of physical pleasure and work that into his journey on the like eightfold path, I believe is what it's called. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. It's been a little while since I took a class that talked about Buddhism. So a lot of the poems deal with, just venting anger and drinking and, they're sexual and just all sorts of stuff. And it's really interesting to read, and I really enjoy a lot of the poems. Never read Zen poetry before, but I'm thinking of trying out some more eventually. I'm hoping my library has some. But if you are interested in kind of a unique take on Buddhism or Zen poetry, or you're trying to read some diverse poetry, I would highly recommend it. All right, question number 2 is lemon pound cake. Name a book that has 400 plus pages that you consider a comfort read and a classic. Now, I don't know about a full-on classic as far as like any genre, but I will say, I didn't bring in a little stabby thing, did I? Anyway, sorry, I couldn't find the thing you're supposed to use to punch a hole in the condensed milk can, so we're just gonna open this up like a normal can. But a book you consider a classic. I think Nevernight is gonna end up having a kind of similar spot in fantasy that kind of like Dune and Stranger in a Strangeland has in sci-fi, where, it's not really like known outside the genre. If you aren't into sci-fi, maybe you haven't really heard of Dune. But if you are a fan of the genre, I think you'll be expected to at least have heard of Nevernight in the future, future fantasy readers. And so I think it will be a classic of the fantasy genre that most fantasy fans end up reading at some point in their journey as a fantasy fan. So I'm going to say Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Question number 3 is Red Velvet Cake. Name a book or book series that you bought thinking it was one thing, but it turned out to be another. So, I forgot what I was going to answer for this question, and I didn't write my answers down. Question number 4 is chocolate chip cookie dough. Name a book or series you can read over and over again, even though you know it's very bad for you. Definitely my guilty pleasure books. I think the series I would go with is the Resident Evil books. They're a novelization of the original games from the late 90s, plus 2 expanded universe novels, and I enjoy reading them. They're complete garbage. No fault of the author. S.D. Perry actually did a pretty good job adapting them from video game to book form. However, they're just cheesy garbage, and you can only do so much given the original source material. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the nod and say that series, because I really enjoy it, even though it is the hottest of hot garbage. Also, I forgot to say this earlier, but I apologize for the distance between me and the camera. One problem with being 6'2" is getting my head in the shot requires the camera to be pretty far back. So sorry you're not closer, but I don't know how much you'd be able to see if you weren't that far back, so we're making do. Apple Pie a la mode. Name a book that was really good, could have been better with a little ice cream. So I am not a fan of ambiguous endings or endings that leave it up to your interpretation. No. If I bought your book, if I'm reading your book, you tell me an ending. Because if I wanted to come up with my own ending, I would write my own book, which I plan on doing when I'm not in school. So don't come at me with you bring your own interpretation, you bring your own ending. No. So with that being said, a lot of Stephen King books decide to end a couple of pages, sometimes even just a sentence or two earlier than they should have, where the ending would be so much more satisfying if he just gave you just the last little bit to make the ending much more concrete and satisfying. The big one at the end is Salem's Lot, where I think the ending would have been perfect if he had literally added 2 more sentences to not leave it so kind of up for your interpretation. I was really unhappy about that because I really enjoyed the rest of the book up to that point. So I'm going to go with that one, Salem's Lot. And I'm ready for some spillage. Now that I read the reference to Apple Pie a la mode, all I can think is the song Fat by Weird Al, which is a parody of Michael Jackson's Bad. Because there's a line in there, if I eat one more pie a la mode, I'm going to need my own zip code. If you haven't seen or heard Weird Al's Fat, pause this video and go watch the music video, because it is a treasure. Weird Al is a national treasure. Alright, so the good news is the color and consistency of this unbaked filling is what I remember it looking like when I made this last year. So I think we did okay, but we'll find out. And I'm just going to mark my pie crust with a marker so that we know this one is the one I'm supposed to eat, because nothing sucks more than trying to remember which one's yours, because that's not a gamble I'm willing to take, and I don't want to give up my pie either, so just mark the little thing on the tin. If you make multiple batches, one for your allergy friends and one for your regular friends, mark them. Another fun fact for you is that our oven has a short in it somewhere, so sometimes it decides it's possessed and wants to freak out on us. So hopefully that won't happen, but if it starts beeping and freaking out, I apologize. So question number 6 is gingerbread cookies, and you have the option of picking hard or soft, and I prefer my gingerbread cookies soft, so the question for that is a book that was squishy in the middle but had a really good beginning and end. And I feel like I'm going to catch some hands for this one, but I'm going to go with Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I feel like Leigh Bardugo wanted to make it seem like, it wasn't easy for the crows to get to the end, so she kept throwing twists and turns and things not quite working out but sort of working out, so they had to keep doing multiple plans, and it just kind of got redundant after a while. I'm like, okay, just let them succeed or break my heart and let's be done with this. So I felt like it was a little bloated in the middle, but I did enjoy some of the character moments, but I wanted a lot more of them. So there you go. The next question is brownies, which you have the option of picking a middle piece or a corner piece, and I'm going to pick corner piece, and that's name a book that starts off strong and then all comes apart. I'm going to name a book that I don't know if anyone else on BookTube has ever talked about. Where are my gloves? I am actually so sensitive to gluten. My sensitivity, according to my doctor, is 20 parts per million. That I actually am going to put on gloves to handle the pie crust for the fire station, because we ain't playing with that. But a book that comes apart is Phantoms by Dean Koontz. This is one of the books I read because it helped inspire Silent Hill, both the book and the movie adaptation, which I haven't seen, but I've seen clips of and seen how the game kind of borrows some of those like cinematics and stuff. But it starts off, it has a really great sense of isolation. It has a great sense of mystery. You know there's some kind of scary horror thing, but you keep finding the aftermath of it. You never actually see it in the start of the book. And then halfway through the book, more people show up, which means the isolation factor is gone. And then you see a lot more of the monster to the point where they're like talking to it through a computer. This book was written in '83, by the way, so like the understanding of computers is like hilariously basic. But it ruins it, because like the whole greatness of the first part of the book is the fact you don't really know much about the monster, and then when you like literally get to like talk to it, doesn't do much for me. The next question is birthday cake. Name a book series or author that you feel like keeps coming out with a project every year. And I'm going to say Shauna McGuire. She seems to come out with like 2 or 3 books every year, because she seems to have a book under her pseudonym Mere Grant every year. She seems to have a book under her own name every year, and then I think she comes out with a book for one of her 2 series every year. So she is just an absolute machine of a writer. No disrespect to her, because I've really enjoyed everything I've read under her Mere Grant stuff, but I'm looking forward to checking out the stuff she's written under her own name, her fantasy stuff. But she seems to put out a lot of material, so kudos to her. And then the last question of this tag is carrot cake. Name a book that sounded healthy for you but ended up being unhealthy, either with content or because it put you in a reading slump. And this time I'm just gonna steal Rachel's answer flat out, and that's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Since starting BookTube, I have not really had a reading slump until now. This month, November, it is the 23rd today, if I remember correctly. I've read 50 pages of Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I read Saga Volume 9. And that's it. And the last book I finished before the end of October, to my recollection, was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. That, combined with the fact I did a 24-hour readathon, which I think like burnt out the last little bit of energy I had left. Not saying that's a bad thing, I had fun, but readathons take a lot of energy. So, like Rachel, Ninth House, because November, it was not it, Chief. It was not it as a reading month. And then the last question, as I'm sure my oven's going to beep before I finish it, is to tag some friends you would love to share some baked goods with. So right off the bat, I definitely have to tag Avery over at Avery Loves Books, because she also has celiac disease, and so she will totally understand the challenges of baking and my whole spiel about someone baking things for you. And she's also awesome, so like check Avery's channel out. I'm also going to tag a very small booktuber who I've become good friends with over the past few months, and that is Linda over at Just a Bookaholic. She has mentioned that she bakes before, so Linda, you should do it, and I would love to see if you would do it while baking, because that would be cool, but if you don't, that's cool too. She doesn't have a food allergy, but I would also like to tag someone else who I know has a disability, and that is Angela over at Blonde Books. I'm going to tag Maddie the Book Pusher, because I mentioned her earlier. And I would share baked goods with her. I'm going to go for Big Air, and I'm going to tag Kat over at Paperback Dreams. Megan from Milky Reads. I'm gonna shoot a tag right back at you. And I need one more. Kat from Kat Talks. Kat, I would love to see you do this. It's been a while since I gave Kat a shout out. She was my first ever friend I made through my videos. And she invited me into my first BookTube group chat, which is still my only BookTube group chat, but shout out to Kat. Kat, I'd like to see you do this too. So there you go. Those are 2 book tags, the end of the year book tag and the Bakes and Books book tag. That's a mouthful. I hope you enjoyed me being an absolute disaster while baking, and I will see you next time. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you next time.